Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has officially announced the conclusion of additional self-defense strikes against multiple targets within Iran. According to an NHK report, the operation was carried out following what the U.S. described as unwarranted and continued aggression by Iran. The strikes, which involved assets from the U.S. Marine Corps, Air Force, and Navy, utilized precision munitions to target Iranian military infrastructure. Specifically, the military campaign focused on neutralizing Iranian surveillance capabilities, communication systems, and various air defense sites located across the country. CENTCOM stated that these targets were specifically chosen because they posed a direct threat to U.S. military personnel and international commercial ships transiting through regional waters. This military action marks a significant development in the ongoing regional tensions, with the U.S. emphasizing that the strikes were a necessary measure taken in self-defense to ensure the safety of its forces and secure critical maritime corridors. Papua New Guinea's parliament has officially adopted a sessional order to consider the result of Bougainville's 2019 independence referendum, where 97.7% of voters supported independence. However, according to RNZ, the government has set a three-quarter majority threshold for ratification, which is significantly higher than the two-thirds threshold required for constitutional amendments. This decision has caused friction between the two sides. Bougainville leaders, including Vice President Ezekiel Massat, have strongly criticized the move, accusing the national government of intentionally poisoning the process to make ratification nearly impossible. Opposition MP Sir Puka Temu also questioned the lack of prior consultation with Bougainville representatives regarding the elevated threshold. Despite the tension, Prime Minister James Marape stated that both governments previously agreed to this requirement and emphasized that the final stage of the process is underway, with further discussions expected in July and a potential vote scheduled for August. According to RNZ, Marshall Islands President Hilda Heine signed an executive order declaring a state of emergency for Ebeye Island following a devastating fire. The blaze, which occurred last Saturday, destroyed approximately 10 homes, leaving over 100 residents homeless. In addition to residential damage, the fire razed two prominent local businesses, the warehouse of the Lucky Start store and the iconic Anrohasa Ebeye Hotel, the island's largest accommodation. The emergency declaration, effective for 90 days, allows the government to fast-track its response, bypass regular bureaucratic procedures, and establish funding mechanisms for recovery. Finance Minister David Paul stated that contractors, including Australian-based Hall Contracting and local firm Pacific International Inc., will clear the debris so rebuilding can begin immediately. Local firefighters and residents contained the fire with help from the Australian construction crew. Meanwhile, the U.S. Army garrison at Kwajalein Atoll, located 3 miles away, opened its Emergency Operations Center, dispatching a fire engine, crew, and essential supplies to Ebeye. President Heine emphasized the national government's complete commitment to rebuilding the affected areas and supporting displaced families. According to a report by the Liberty Times, the U.S. House Appropriations Committee has unveiled the fiscal year 2027 Defense Appropriations Bill, which includes $2 billion in funding dedicated to supporting Taiwan's defense capabilities amidst increasing military threats from China. The proposed legislation outlines a total of 1.072 trillion ceds in discretionary spending. Under the Interagency Operations and Maintenance portion, the bill allocates $1 billion to the Taiwan Security Cooperation Initiative, which remains available for obligation until September 30, 2028. This funding will allow the U.S. Secretary of Defense, with the concurrence of the Secretary of State, to provide Taiwan with assistance, including the procurement of defense articles and services, as well as military education and training. Additionally, another $1 billion is earmarked to replace and compensate for defense articles and services previously provided to Taiwan. The House Defense Subcommittee is scheduled to review the bill in a closed-door session. The legislation aims to bolster U.S. strategic military advantages while advancing the priorities of the administration. According to a report by Lianhe Xiaobao, the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, announced that the number of globally displaced people fell to 117.8 million at the end of 2025, representing a decrease of 5.4 million from the previous year. This marks the first decline in a decade. The reduction was primarily driven by a sharp increase in returnees, with 14.7 million displaced individuals returning home in 2025. However, UNHCR Director Sala cautioned that more than 90% of these returns occurred under pressure and in unstable environments, particularly in war-torn nations like Afghanistan, Sudan, and Syria. He warned that returning to areas with deteriorating security and ruined infrastructure could trigger new cycles of displacement. Meanwhile, geopolitical conflicts continue to drive displacement. New crises in 2026, such as the war in the Middle East and strikes in Lebanon, have forced millions more to flee. Furthermore, third-country resettlement spots halved to 81,800 in 2025, largely due to a drop in U.S. intake, widening the gap between refugee needs and available assistance. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.